Good morning, everybody, and happy Mother's Day from the Heights Church of God family. Someone has said the closest comparison to God's love is the love of a mother for her children. It is said that an angel was sent from heaven to earth and was told to bring back the three most beautiful and precious things on earth. After a long search, the angel selected the smile of a little child, a beautiful red rose, and the love of a mother. But when the angel got back to heaven, the beautiful rose had faded. The little child's smile had turned to a frown, but the mother's love was still just as strong as ever. I believe I saw the love of God through the love of my mother. I honestly believe that. Raising 6 boys and 3 girls and praying for every one of them, especially when the oldest 2 was in World War II overseas and both in action. My brother Ray came home shell-shocked and had to wear cotton in his ears for several months. My brother Bud was a tank sergeant and was behind enemy lines at one time. But God watched over them through the prayers of my mother. Every day at mail time, she would be out on the walk waiting for the mailman to come. A mother's love is a good comparison to God's love as far as we know about love on earth. Abraham Lincoln said, "All that I am, I owe to my angel mother." Did you know that even though Jesus was the Son of God, he needed a mother to watch over and care for him? And you read the Bible, and every once in a while you'll see, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, was there. When he performed the first miracle in Cana, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, was there. When they were in the upper room, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, was there. And when the crucifixion took place, and the mother of Jesus stood by the cross. She was always there for him, and he was the Son of God. So God knew how much we as mortal human beings needed mothers to watch and care for us. You see, mothers cares like God cares. She cares for her children like God cares for his children. And she knows her children. 6 boys and 3 girls. My mother knew what every one of us liked to eat and what we didn't like to eat. And of course, I've told you before, she knew that my favorite dish was chicken and dumplings. And when she was fixing them, she knew my heart was beating fast. And she knew what size I wore. I don't recall my mom and dad ever taking me to town and buying me a new shirt or a new pair of trousers. Because, you see, I was next to the baby, and Don was the baby, and we wore hand-me-downs or rummage sale clothes. But my mother didn't have to know what my size was, or Don's size was. She could go to a rummage sale and hold up a shirt and know exactly which one of us kids it would fit. She could look at a pair of shoes. She knew us. God knows us. God put someone in our home that would love us and care for us somewhat like he does, so that through their love we might see that he is the God who loves us so much that he gave us a mother like that. I've told the story different times about when I was about 8 years old, and I loved to play cowboy and Indians. And I was out playing with Philip Sloan and Johnny Dawson, and we were having a big time. And my mom and dad went to town to one of the big churches that was having a big rummage sale. Well, when they got home and drove into the driveway, Don and Kenny and me and Bob all came from 4 different directions to see what they had got. We went in the house, and Dad set the box on the table. My mom went in the bedroom to take her coat off. And while she was in the bedroom, I reached up and peeked over the edge of that box, and I saw a genuine leather cowboy belt all rolled up. And I started walking back and forth in the kitchen, praying secretly to myself and saying, "God, please let that belt be for me." please. Well, she come out and she took out a shirt and said, Kenny, this is for you. Took a pair of shoes and said, Bob, these will fit you. A little pair of trousers and said, Don, come here, these will fit you. And she picked up that belt and my heart stopped. She said, Joe, this is for you. And I went in the bedroom, closed the door, with my back against the door, and that belt still rolled up in my hands. I prayed this prayer. Dear God in heaven, if my mother ever bought me anything that fit, please, God, please let this belt fit me. Because if it don't fit me, Kenny or Don will get it. And I cannot bear to give it up. I mean, I was only 8 years old, but I knew how to pray when I wanted something. I mean, I had a hold of the horns of the altar. And so I come out, well, I put that through my little belt loops, and I tell you, it fit me to a TY. And I have never heard explain what that means, but I think it means a good fit. I hugged my mother. I took off out the back door hunting for Philip and Johnny and all of them. And boy, did I play cowboy and Indian. I loved my mother. And many's the night we slept in the same middle room together, 2 beds, her bed and our bed. My dad would be away in revival. And I could hear her praying in a whisper for us kids. Kenny and Don and I also slept in the same bed. But my mother never stopped praying for us all through our lifetime. I thought when I got grown and got married, I wouldn't be Mom's little boy anymore. But I was wrong. I was still her little boy. I remember one time I had a tooth pull over here. You couldn't hardly see it at all. But when we visited her, the first thing she said, oh, you had a tooth pull. She saw it. She's still my mother. So Abraham Lincoln one day sent for one of his soldiers to come to his office. And the boy had done something, a misdemeanor of some kind. And he set him down and said, son, what's your name? And he told him. And he said, where are you from? He told him. He said, son, how's your mother getting along? Oh, sir, she's fine. Mr. President, she's doing just fine. And he said, are you sure? He said, oh, yes, I'm positive. My mother's doing just fine. And he held up an envelope and said, son, I have here a letter from your mother. She thinks you're dead. And she has sent me some money in this envelope to put flowers on your grave. And that boy dropped his head and the tears came down his face. And Mr. Lincoln said, I want you to go to that desk and sit down right there. This is going to be your punishment for what you did. You write your mother a letter, and you tell her you're okay. And you tell her that you love her. And from this day forward, every week, you write her another letter and let her know that you're okay. Wouldn't it be great if we had more presidents like that? I was reading this past week. Did you know that there were more biographies wrote about Jesus than anyone else in the history of the world? Do you know who was second? Abraham Lincoln. Second only to Jesus in autobiographies that have been written about him. Boy, if that isn't an honor, I don't know what it is. His mother used to set him on her lap and read the Bible to him, and especially the 10 Commandments. And she drilled in him to be honest and to be fair. And I think that's why he's got that name, Honest Abe. And he was a great man of God. You can't fool mothers. They know. They'll find out. They'll find out. When Bud and Ray was in the Marines in the middle of the war, if you can believe this, of all the hundreds of thousands of soldiers fighting World War II, on one island, they met each other. They met each other. And it was just unbelievable. And they sent a picture home to my mother, both in uniform and both walking side by side down the sidewalk, smiling. And Mom got that letter and that picture, and she sat on the couch and she just cried. And she said, Joe, come here and look at this picture. And I said, boy, Mom, them's the 2 most handsome guys I ever saw. They're both my heroes, Mom. I went back and sat down on the couch, and she kept looking at the picture. She said, Joe, come here again. And I did, and she said, look here, isn't that a cigarette in Ray's fingers there? And I said, Mom, I believe it is. And that's when she first found out that Ray smoked. But you can't fool Mom forever. God will help them find out some way, somehow. I was reading just this morning and last night about some of the great and famous men who credited their mother for their success in life. I was surprised. I want to read some of them to you. Of course, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, John and Charles Wesley, John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. His mother said he was a wayward son, he was mean, he was away from home for years, but she never stopped praying for him. And his ministry and message is still going around the world, everywhere people sing Amazing Grace. Andrew Jackson, President, John Quincy Adams, even Napoleon Bonaparte had this saying, let France have good mothers, and she will have good sons. Napoleon Bonaparte. Ulysses S. Grant, Charles Spurgeon, D.L. Moody, Calvin Coolidge, General Douglas MacArthur, all of these who achieved great fame and they were great people and they did great works, but every one of them gave their testimony, I owe everything I am to my mother. Abraham Lincoln said, all I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. President William McKinley, mother was sick, close to death. He was at the White House. They sent word, come as soon as you can. And he sent back, tell mother I'll be there. And he took off right then. And that saying inspired another writer to write that song in the hymnal. Tell mother I'll be there. And of course he meant, tell my mother in heaven I'll be there. But that's where he got the inspiration for it. Another songwriter who had wandered far and far away from God, he got saved and said, mother's prayers have followed me. Everywhere I went, mother's prayers followed me. Isn't that something? Mothers. And the mother of Jesus was there. And the mother of Jesus was there. There was a family that lived on a farm, and this is one of my favorite true stories. They lived on a farm, and they had several children, and in time to come, the father had passed away. Well, the oldest son became what we call the man of the house. But he hated farming. He was a rebellious child from his childhood on up to where he was. And one day he told his mother, he said, Mom, I'm leaving. And she pleaded with him. She said, son, you've taken your father's place. You're the one that got the strength around here. He said, I know it, but I can't stand it any longer. I hate it here. I want to get out in the world. I want to see what's going on. I want to find my place in life. And against her pleading, he left. Well, that same evening when she fixed supper, the children were setting the table. And she said, wait a minute, said his place. And they said, but Mom, he's gone. She said, I know, but he's still my son, said his place. Well, every day for weeks and months and now years have gone by. And every meal, his place was set. And one day at supper time, the children were seated at the table, and she was standing at the head of the table just getting ready to ask the blessing. And she saw somebody coming up the back walk. His hair was all ruffled. He needed a shave. His clothes were ragged. He just looked so terrible. But she knew exactly. And she walked over to the door and opened it just as he started to knock. And when she opened the door, he said, Mom, it's me. And he dropped his head and the tears streamed down his face. And he said, Mom, things didn't turn out like I thought they would. I don't have no money. I don't have no place to stay. And I'm hungry. Could I please come home? And without a word, she opened the door wide. pointed to his place at the table, took him in her arms and said, "Son, your place has been waiting for you ever since you left." Am I speaking to somebody this morning that had a praying mother? God loves you. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you would answer her prayers by coming home and giving your heart to God? Because I'm telling you, God has your place set at the table. He's just waiting for you to come home. The price has already been paid for your sin. And that mother of yours, who is probably already in heaven, is waiting to greet you. And would it be wonderful if you would answer her prayers? I pray that God will help you this morning. If your mother is alive, give her a call. If you can, go see her. Embrace her. Tell her you love her. Because a mother's love is next to comparison to God's love. God bless you and have a wonderful Mother's Day. Thank you.